I like to think of when I was doing this work, I had to really think about what the hell is the self. When I was in school as a kid, I always got report cards that said Lisa needs to show more self-control. Lisa has no self-esteem. And that always bothered me when I was a little kid. And as I got older, I realized that if the self is the innate aspect of me that makes me unique, that is the sum of my emotions, my beliefs, my wants that are individual and unique in relation to everyone else in my experience. If as a child, that self went ignored, denied, unseen, minimized, abandoned, rejected, then the mirror neurons in my head have not been turned on to the idea that I have a self. I have lived my life as an extension to other people seeking validation outside of myself. So if my mother and father don't mirror back to me a sense that I am enough, I, this being, this psychological aspect of me, is actually blind to the self. I can't see it because my mother and father didn't see it. They didn't acknowledge it. Had they said, Lisa, how are you? How was your day? And took a real interest in who I was as a person, or if when I cried, they showed interest and I wasn't criticized, then I would have developed a sense that I am enough, that my feelings matter. It's okay to be me. And so if you grow up in a home where your parents have not attuned to you, and I don't mean to put all the weight on the parents, but many of us do not understand as parents, and a parent myself, we do not understand or appreciate how important it is to mirror back to our children what they are experiencing on an emotional level. When your child is upset, we have to, as parents, acknowledge that our children are upset. We have to meet them there. That's how they feel seen. So if you grow up in a house where that is lacking, then you don't know yourself. You feel self-alienated. If no one had esteem for you or respect for you, you don't know how to have respect for the self. And that's how we have this faulty perception of the self that sounds like, I'm not good enough. I am not enough. I can't do that. I don't think I'll ever achieve that. So the self-talk that we hear is generally very negative. And so we change that by acknowledging that it's not our fault if our parents did not understand or appreciate the value in nurturing us in a really healthy way. We fix that by identifying the fact that there is a hole in the wall. You can't fix a hole in the wall you don't know exists. So we have to understand what went wrong. We have to pay attention to the fact that we feel this way about ourselves. We have to acknowledge that that is a false perception, that it is an illusion, because at our core, we are all good enough. So we move in that direction of acknowledging the pain, understanding it wasn't our fault, and then learning skills that we need to learn to self-correct this negative self-talk. And slowly over time, we are able to reprogram our mind with new ideas about the self. But it's a process. It takes time, but it can be done. I've created what's called the 12-week breakthrough coaching program. And the first 4 weeks, it's a module that I call the awakening module. And the second 4 weeks, I labeled it the accountability module. And the third 4 weeks, I labeled it the ascension module. Because even though it's not our fault that we have these false perceptions of ourselves, because every child is a product, or every child is affected by the environment they are born into. So if I am a child that's born into a very loving home where I feel loved by both parents, my brain will develop in a certain way, and most likely in a very healthy way. I will feel socially able to respond to other people. I'll have a sense of self. I'll have good boundaries because I've been respected. I watch my parents respect themselves. On the other hand, if I'm a child who's born to people who are dysfunctional, who argue all the time, who hit me, who criticize me, who drink, who abandon me to alcoholism or some other type of drug addiction, I am not getting what I need. So the child that I am is being affected by that environment, and that's not my fault. But there is a definitive consequence of being raised in that type of an environment that is not my fault. But as an adult who's expanding her consciousness, I have to understand that the only person that can fix what's wrong is me. So at one point, and this is why I labeled the second module in my program the accountability module, because at one point you have to roll up your sleeves and say, okay, this is my mind. These are the programs that have been planted into my mind. I didn't put them there, but they're there. And the only person that can fix them is me. Because the healing that has to take place is on the mental field. It's in the subconscious realm many, many times. And the only person that can access the subconscious mind, and really do the reprogramming that needs to get done is really you. So you're right. There is, yes, it's not our fault that we've been affected by our environments. We're all innocent. We're all born to experiences, and it's not our fault that, our neighbors grew up in a wonderful home. Kids our same age, they had wonderful life experiences and we didn't. That's not our fault. But children oftentimes feel responsible for why they don't have perfect life experiences. And that helps when we understand it's not our fault, that helps heal shame and guilt. But as a conscious being, as someone who has the ability to expand their consciousness, we have to pretty much surrender to what's happened and then do what we can to gently take accountability for the types of thoughts that we're thinking and be willing to change those thoughts, to catch them and reframe them and put a new healthy thought in. And if you do that over and over and over and over and never stop, you will win. You will reprogram your mind.
Hi, Lisa. I very much agree with your truths. It's very easy to see if you compare two families, how they raise and respond to their children, what their children are kind of going to grow up to be like. I mean, like you say, we can't blame it all on parenting, but a whole lot of it does come through. And I think you could take the same concept and apply it to blind people as a group. And the difference, rather than acknowledging their self, it's about their abilities. If people are raised in a family where they're told they can't do this, they don't need to do this, they won't be able to do this, they're going to believe it. And they're going to believe it up until, even when they see other blind people, that's kind of weird, but when they know other blind people are doing these things, they still feel, I can't. And I guess that's where you get to the accountability. Realize that just because was told I can't, doesn't mean I can't. So then you start trying things. But too many blind people just are stuck in the first stage, just accepting that they can't, because that's all they've ever heard.
Hi, Lisa. I really enjoyed this post, and I think I agree with everything you said. The interesting thing, too, is that even outside of the family, in the community at large, sometimes we allow ourselves to be unduly defined by other people's perceptions of and experiences of us. What I mean by that, the first time I ever really understood that it was unusual for a person, generally speaking, to be blind, and that I was blind and therefore I was a little unusual, happened when I was about 5 years old. I was walking with my mother, and two little girls were behind us. And one said to the other, "That little boy is blind." And I was kind of intrigued, attention from any quarter when you're a child and everything is okay. It can be sometimes welcome. So I said, "Mama, they're talking about me." And she wouldn't answer. I think she was not quite so happy to hear this inadvertent mirror manifesto or whatever you want to call it. But it's funny how a community at large, and I'm thinking more away from the situations you're describing, like the family and the parents, and I know that they have an essential effect on how we view the world, but the community does too, because if you live in a community of people whose expectations of you are very limited, that's like another form of gravity that you either choose to allow and you fall faster further, or you resist it. You think, what's important? And I think this gets back to your premise, which I really like, the thing about accountability, because, sometimes we establish that something isn't working for us, and we'd love to address the problem, but that accountability, that's leading us, that's like an ingress into the work that we need to do on ourselves to, one, accept where we are and what we can change, and then begin to change it. And these things I never even began to address in earnest until I was probably in my 40s, and that decade for me has come and gone. But I think these kinds of things would be really good to introduce. I don't know, it might even be appropriate at the kindergarten level to introduce means of honoring the self, validating the self, defining and establishing how the self relates to others and vice versa. And I suppose it would be almost introducing a therapy subject, or the subject of therapy, into your preschool and elementary curriculum. I don't know. But in any event, I really enjoyed this post, and thank you for putting this out here.